What's going on, everybody? And you guys have probably already noticed. I'll get into the rest of the intro later. The beard is gone. It will be coming back. It's summer. It's hot. The beard had to go away. I put out a post saying, should I bring back the baby face? People were saying yes. So I did it. Back to the intro. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure the subscribe button down below. Hit the notification bell as well if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. In this video today, I kind of want to make this a recurring series. I'm not 100% sure, not a weekly thing by any means, especially in the off season. Now, in the regular season, I could potentially talk about it weekly, but it's power rankings. I love power rankings. If you don't know, I do play action football. We're going to be doing a lot of power rankings throughout the year, and you guys can see my takes on, overall, NFL, takes, I guess, as a whole. We're almost at 800 subscribers over there. So if you want to check it out, feel free. Also on Instagram and TikTok. But I love doing power rankings. I think they're enjoyable. I think, there's something that's always fun to talk about because everybody's team gets involved. And one of the biggest power ranking shows, I believe the number one is Colin Cowherd herd hierarchy. All right. Now, I think it's the most popular. Obviously, other people do top 10s. Typically, First Take does the top 5. They do like Steven's A list. I enjoy those. I think they're wrong almost every time, but I enjoy them. I think they're entertaining. And Colin Cowherd recently put out, I think it was it was 10 days ago. Obviously not super relevant, but teams haven't really changed. So, it doesn't really matter. So I wanted to talk about it. He did a top 10 AFC teams power rankings. And I'm going to go through the list right now. We're going to talk about it and give my thoughts on where the Ravens should rank. Number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2 is the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 3, the Los Angeles Chargers. Number 4, the Buffalo Bills. Number 5, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Number 6, the Baltimore Ravens. Number 7, Denver Broncos. Number 8, New York Jets. Number 9, Pittsburgh Steelers. And number 10, the Miami Dolphins. I think this is wrong. That's all I really have to say. I'm pretty surprised with some of the rankings, and maybe not surprised, but I disagree. But I know why they're put there. The Chargers every year under Justin Herbert, all we hear about, this is the best roster you can assemble. This is a top 3 roster. This is exactly what you were looking for. This is the team that's going to dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs. And every year we hear that. And then what happens? Nothing. Nothing happens. And they get into becoming a above average, good, borderline, really good football team, but they struggle. And last year they ended up making the playoffs for the first time under Justin Herbert, and they ended up blowing another massive lead, which has been a huge problem for the Chargers. I don't even know how long, 20 years. But under Justin Herbert, they've blown a lot of leads, and he did that at Oregon. I'm not trying to blame him. I think it's the coach's fault. But they kept their head coach, who was the problem. And the expectation is, oh, yeah, they're just going to fix all their problems. They didn't do anything crazy. They drafted Quentin Johnston, who I don't expect to really jump in and take over by any means. I think he's, going to be a wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 4 with incredible upside. He could down the road be a, multi-time Pro Bowler. He could be an all-pro, all that stuff. I'm not trying to hate on him. But I didn't see, it's not like they made any crazy additions. They still have the great players like Khalil Mack, Derwin James, Joey Bosa, obviously Justin Herbert. But, I mean, it's basically the same team. And they weren't that good. And they get hyped up every year. And the Ravens get absolutely no hype. Then, I'm not going to disagree with the Chiefs. I'm not going to disagree with the Bengals because at least I know where they're coming from, right? Those were the 2 teams in the AFC championship game last year. The Chiefs are clearly the best team, I think, in the NFL. And then the Bengals, I don't think they're right next to the Chiefs, but I think, right now, if I was ranking, I'd probably put them ahead. I think the Ravens are, will be better. I think they will beat them. But I see why they're there. I'm not going to argue with that. The Bills above the Ravens. I'm not going to argue with it. I think the Bills are a very good football team. I'm fine if people put them over the Ravens. Now, I think, with time, people will end up disagreeing. But again, not going to argue with that. The Jacksonville Jaguars is very interesting. Obviously, the Jaguars beat the Ravens last year. The Ravens had I think that was the worst choked game of the season. I think that was worse than the Miami Dolphins because you look at it and it was just like, the Gus Edwards fumble was just brutal. And then you see Lamar, hit that, 65 yarder to Deshaun Jackson. It's like, oh yeah, they got this in the bag. They win. And then they just threw at Marcus Peters like every play to finish out the game. And then they ended up winning. So shout out to the Jags for doing that. But they didn't make I didn't think they had a very good draft. They drafted some offensive linemen. They drafted some depth pieces. Nobody's starting. The big addition was Calvin Ridley. I think he's good. But like the Ravens clearly got significantly better than what they were last year. And again, they were a playoff team last year, and Lamar Jackson didn't finish the season. He missed so many games. And every year, it baffles me how slept on the Ravens are because they have one thing that nobody else has, and that's Lamar Jackson. And no matter how bad the team around him is, he has always won. He has always been in every game except for, I could think of 3 football games of his entire career that he wasn't in. Okay? One was against the Cleveland Browns. One was against the Cincinnati Bengals, I believe. They got blown out one time. Like, that might not have even been Lamar. Like, even in the games where he plays terrible and the Ravens, seem like they get blown out, like they've lost to the Chiefs before, pretty bad. They end up losing by 9. And you're like, oh, wow, the score wasn't that bad. He doesn't get blown out. He always makes it a game. I think the best example is that Chargers playoff game where everyone was like, oh, man, the Ravens got to absolutely destroy the game. They didn't. The Ravens had the ball in a 1-possession game with under 2 minutes remaining. Joey Bosa came in, got the strip sack. They ended up losing the game. Whatever. They were still in that game because he's always in the game. And he's always winning games. He's always just doing all these great things that help him and help the team, be successful. And he gets no credit. No credit the Ravens get for them just winning when he is playing. I don't care what the roster. I don't care what the wide receivers are. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, but the roster also significantly improved. You want to talk about the weapons. Last year he was rocking with Rashad Bateman for the beginning part of the year. Devin Duvernay. Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is great. J.K. Dobbins had to get, adjustment surgery, so he missed a lot of time. When he came back, he was very good. And Ronnie Stanley was nursing back his injury, and he was alternating snaps at the beginning of the year. Now it's like, okay, what did you do? Well, Tyler Linderbaum's going into year 2. Ronnie Stanley's no longer coming off of injury. You added Odell. You added, basically a healthy Rashad Bateman. You added Zay Flowers. You have Isaiah Likely. You have a new offensive coordinator that is going to drastically help your team. I haven't even mentioned Monken. And then the defense. What, you lose Marcus Peters and Chuck Clark? I'm not worried about that because we got guys like this idea that the Ravens just consistently fall off every year, and then people watch the Ravens and Lamar Jackson play, and then they just slowly bump them up again, and then the next year starts and they're like, well, actually they're not that good. And you're like, why? What makes people believe the Jaguars are better? Trevor Lawrence? Lamar's better. And I think Trevor Lawrence, I believe he's number 7. Yeah, I think he's number 7 on my current quarterback rankings. He might even be 6, but I think he's 7. No, he's 7. I think Rodgers is 6. Like Lamar Jackson is the best player out of those teams. The second best player is probably Trevor Lawrence. And then it's Mark Andrews, Roquan Smith, Marlon Humphrey. Those 3 players are better than any players on the Jaguars outside of Trevor Lawrence. Oh, and then you want to look at offensive line. Ronnie Stanley's probably better than all those guys. Coaching Doug Peterson. I like Doug Peterson. I think he's very good. But I don't know if that's making that much of a difference because the Ravens lost the player or person holding them back the most. The Ravens lost, and that was Greg Roman. And now there's this idea that the Ravens can't be that good because Greg Roman was helping them so much. What Ravens were you watching? Who watched the Ravens and were like, yeah, Greg Roman's really propelling this team forward. No, you're watching it and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Let Lamar do his thing. Instead, we're just doing these random, shenanigans that don't get anything done. But that's where the Ravens sit currently. And remind you, this isn't sixth best team in the NFL. This is sixth best team in the AFC. They probably got the Eagles above them. They probably have the Niners above them. They probably have the Cowboys above them. That's just an assumption. I haven't seen his rankings, but that would put the Ravens at least ninth. Come on. You look at this roster. There's no way it's the ninth best roster in the NFL. I'm not saying they're the best. I'm not saying they're the Chiefs. But they can compete with anybody. And I don't think some of the teams on this list are competing with anybody. Let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow.